I mean, do you have lights in Bedford cottages?
No, not this time of year.
Oh, I see.
No, I've just put a different camera in because the other one's not working.
I see, right, okay.
Yeah, so got a bit of light now? No, yeah.
No, it looks like the black hole of Calcutta at the moment.
That's all right. I can hear you when I can see you also.
Okay, all right.
I'll fiddle with it till I get it right.
If you want to say anything, Alec, you'll have to shout out because I won't see you if you put your hand up.
I can't understand that.
Right, we appear to be live on YouTube.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, good evening, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Development Management and Licensing Committee, and a welcome to any members of the public who may be watching us on YouTube this evening. During this meeting, I want you to be muted all the time except when you wish to speak. When you wish to speak, please raise a hand and I'll invite you to speak. And at that point, you can unmute yourselves. We'll start the meeting by going around the screen and just confirming that everyone's here and that you can hear me. And I'll go around the screen in the order that I currently see you. So Councillor Graham Parker. Felt as though you're trying to poke my eye out then. You can obviously hear us, Graham. We'll let you struggle to sort out your unmuting. Councillor Leslie Crawford.
Oh, right.
Well done. Councillor Leslie Crawford. Yes, okay, thank you. Councillor Alan Lewis.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I may have to leave before the end of the meeting with a referee meeting. Sorry.
Okay. Councillor Barry Smith. Are you there, Barry? We've just got your name on screen at the moment. I'll come back to you. Councillor Mrs. Johnson.
Yes, I'm here and I can hear you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Pete Squire. Okay, next time you do it, Pete, unmute. Yeah. Councillor James Ellis.
Evening, Chairman.
Councillor Tony Fay.
Good evening, Chairman.
And Councillor Andy Hutton.
Yes, here, Mr. Chairman. I hope I'm going deaf and it's not that you're very quiet this evening.
Well, I'm a very quiet person, Andy.
Just seems very quiet tonight.
Okay, I'll see if I can work out how to turn my microphone up.
Thanks.
Councillor Barry Smith, just confirm that you can hear me, please. Okay, fine, thank you. Good. Without further ado, we'll get stuck into the agenda. I can just remind you that standing orders apply to virtual meetings in the way that they apply to meetings in the chamber. And I begin with agenda item 1. I assume we have no apologies for absence as we're complete.
That is correct.
Thank you. And agenda item 2, minutes of the last meeting, to confirm their accuracy, please. Is everyone happy that they're an accurate representation? Yes, thumbs up all round. Okay, thank you very much. And then declarations of interest. To receive disclosures of unregistered other interests from councillors. If you are unaware of anything at this stage, please let us know now. No, thank you. If you do become aware of anything as we go through the agenda, please let me know. Agenda item 4, Dartmoor National Park. We haven't received any items, but Graham, do you wish to give any feedback on the inquiry?
Yes, just briefly, Chair. I've given you notes of all the sessions, but a couple of bits of sessions that I ended up missing. It's actually going quite nicely, but I know some of you have managed to look in on it, and I hope you've been impressed by what the inspector's doing is looking for the evidence to support the claims that are made in the local plan. And once or twice, I think it's fair to say once or twice the local plan team have been tripped up, and so they've had to produce additional evidence. I've got no doubt at all that this is a local plan that's going to go through. The sessions that are coming up this week, tomorrow morning is, I don't think it's going to be a long session, but it's going to look at public open space and sports facilities in the morning, along with sustainable transport, parking standards, electric vehicle charging points. Now, that's something that's a number of our members have raised in months past. So it might be just worth listening in on that one to see what the inspector's concerned about. In the afternoon, we've got minerals and waste, and I'm not really expecting that one to be either long or complicated. I should be able to get back to that one. Wednesday morning, I am definitely going to be there for the discussion on settlement boundaries, given the way in which West Devon are tackling separate settlement boundaries. I think it's interesting that Dartmoor have gone completely the other way, and virtually every settlement has a boundary, and their justification is so that we know exactly where we're applying the policies within settlements and in the countryside. And we're going to come to a couple this afternoon where that issue is important for us. Site allocations, she's already said really that she's not going to be too worried about site allocations. And then on Friday, Friday is going to turn out to be an interesting session, because you'll see that in the joint local plan, there are allocations for housing, there are allocations for and numbers for retailing, for employment. Well, Dartmoor have said it's not our job to help the housing crisis. It's not our job to help the employment situation. Our job is to protect the national park. And so we're not putting requirements down. We've calculated what the general need would be, but actually what we're going to do is just meet that general need by looking at local needs and the local situations. And that one, I think, has caught the inspector a little bit on the hop. So she's asking the questions, basically, how do I know when you'll achieve what you want in the local plan if you're not saying what you're going to achieve? So that one's going to be an interesting session for local plan nerds like myself. Has anybody actually managed to look in? I know Andy has looked in on a couple of sessions. Has anybody else been able to? Well done, James. Thanks. Which session did you come to?
I managed to get to Friday mornings.
Oh yeah, now I missed the first half of that, so I might contact you just to see what I missed.
Right.
That's it for me. So if there are any questions, I see Leslie's got her hand up.
Leslie?
Yeah, please. Graham, I thought you said that the one on sustainable transport was tomorrow afternoon, but then you went on to say something else was. So can you clarify when that is? So I might try and.
Okay, sustainable transport is tomorrow morning at 9:30. Yeah, she's going to start with public open space and sports facilities. And then the issue afterwards is wrapping up sustainable transport, parking standards, electric vehicle charging points, and public car parks. So okay. That, I mean, if you're there for 9:30, you'll see all of that.
Okay, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Graham.
My pleasure, Chair.
Agenda item 5, town planning issues. We've not received any correspondence relating to town planning issues. And agenda item 6, general correspondence. We've not received any general correspondence. Urgent business brought forward, agenda item 7. I'm not proposing to bring forward any urgent business this evening. Now that may sound like good progress through the agenda, but it starts getting a little slower now. So agenda item 8A, decisions by West Devon Borough Council attached to Appendix A. You've probably had a chance to look through those, and you will have noticed a couple of areas of disagreement. I draw your attention to the old milking parlour at Higher Wilminston Farm, householder application for a garage, which we objected to, and the grounds are set out in your paperwork, and conditional approval has been granted. I confess I haven't had a chance to look at the officer's report. I don't know whether anybody else has. No. We'll just merely note that that was different then. And another one, the barn, Higher Wilminstone Farm. This was an application for variation of condition 5 regarding a holiday let condition. And from what I recall, this was relating to demonstrating that the premises were only being used for a holiday let. And we objected on the basis that we felt that the existing condition served the purpose perfectly satisfactorily. However, the borough granted conditional approval to the variation. The only other one I remember was relating to Tiddybrook Road. And you'll recall that last time I told you that I actually went to the borough development management meeting and spoke, but the goalposts had moved by the time that I got to that meeting, and our concerns effectively had been satisfactorily met. And I think if the situation that applied at the meeting had applied when we considered the application, we may have very well come to a different conclusion. Unless anybody else wants to draw attention to any other decisions. Leslie.
Yes, we approved, sorry, the one above the old milking parlour at 12 Watts Road. We supported that. Demolition of a stone garden wall and creation of a single-storey kitchen extension. And that's been refused. So that's quite an interesting one.
I'm not surprised to see your hand go up, Graham.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. Graham Lawrence understood. I read his comment with great interest. He understood where we were coming from, but he took the view that the extension that was being proposed was, I think he called it an incongruous modern addition to the building. And on that basis, he said he felt that it did harm to the conservation area and harm to the World Heritage Site. So he simply took a different view about whether the extension was acceptable or not, which I honestly think is fair enough and doesn't mark a significant disagreement between us.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Any other observations? No? So we go on to 8B then and start considering this evening's applications. There are quite a few of them. Okay. Ready, Jan? Thank you. So we start with Beechwood Down Road, householder application for proposed extension and alterations to existing dwelling for new family room and conversion of existing loft space for new ensuite master bedroom. Do any of you have any concerns about this application? James.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm good application. I move we support it. I'll support this up.
Okay, everyone happy to support this application? Yep, jolly good. Right, so the next one is 21 Glanville Road, householder application for replacement of former garage door with window. And just to remind you, this falls within the conservation area and within the World Heritage Site. They want to replace the door with a window because the purpose of the garage is being changed from a garage to a studio. It doesn't involve the building of any extension. Does anyone have any comments to make about this one, please? Graham?
Yeah, I also thought that was what the application was for. But as you look at the drawings, Chairman, there appears to be a proposal for a canopy coming forward 2 or 3 meters, a metal framed canopy coming forward towards the road. And I must admit, I've got a kind of mixed view on this. I think the Crittall windows, I think, is a definite improvement and fits well with what's clearly a 1930s or 1950s garage block. But if I'm reading the drawings right, that canopy is going to look awful. So I mean, I've got a kind of mixed view on this. A bit of it I think is fine. A bit of it I think is awful.
And of course, there's no mention of the canopy certainly in the heading of the application.
No, there isn't. And I mean, the other thing is, I know it's my old hobby horse, but I think we should welcome the heritage assessment, but wonder why there's no mention of the World Heritage Site in there.
No.
But you're right. There's no mention in the application or in any of the documentation. It's when you look at the drawings that you see it.
Yes, I did see it actually, but I'd forgotten it until you mentioned it again. Does anyone else have any comments to make about this? I think it's an aluminium extension, canopy, if I remember. Correct.
Yeah. May I suggest, Chair, that we go with a neutral view, saying that we welcome the change of the windows. We have no objection to that, but are concerned about the appearance of the canopy to the front of the garage, the studio. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I second that.
Yep. We don't want to encourage people not being quite open with what they're actually doing, do we? By missing things off.
Yeah, I was going to take a slightly more supportive line and suggest that we support it. We support the replacement of the window, of the door with a window, but we note that a metal canopy is shown in the diagrams, but not referred to elsewhere. And we have concerns about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a slightly more positive position. James.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, you stole the words out of my mouth. I completely agree with supporting and making a note.
Graham?
Yeah, I mean, but the only thing that I would say is that if we're concerned about the canopy extension, then I think we ought to be doing more than noting it. I personally think that it is going to look dreadful, but I'll go with the committee.
Well, we can make the phrasing slightly firmer. Because we could, well, let me propose that we support the application to replace the door with a window.
Yes.
We note, however, the presence of the canopy on the diagrams, comma, not referred to elsewhere in the application, comma, and have significant concerns that it will be an incongruous intrusion.
Not the last time that phrase will be used.
Oh, he started well.
Sadly, it's not unprecedented.
No, I'd go with that.
And everything else is unprecedented these days, isn't it?
I'm happy with that, yes. Chair.
Okay. Is everyone else happy if we take that line? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Okay. So the next one is Tavy Properties Limited, land off the road from Churchill to Warren's Cross, Whitchurch. So on the left-hand side, as you go up towards the cattle grid, there have been applications on this plot of land before. The last one was for a group of about 10 houses, if I remember correctly. So this is for the development of one dwelling with associated garaging, equine facilities, stabling, new site access, associated infrastructure, landscaping, parking, and boundary treatments. And by way of context, this falls within the Whitchurch conservation area. Over to you, members. James, then Andy.
I really like this application, and I thought how lucky somebody will be if it actually does go through to live there, and that it will actually bring in employment opportunities and money into the town. So I thought their drawings, their application, everything was excellent. But I think Councillor Parker's about to tell us it's just outside the boundary, which is the issue with it. I would like to support it, but I understand about settlement boundaries and properties being outside those and where would it end. I would like to support it in principle and leave it to West Devon to decide with their boundaries, but I will go with the committee.
We don't have settlement boundaries at the moment, although you're right that it does fall outside the pre-existing settlement boundary, only just. Andy.
I must object. This is a green field in a conservation area that we're going to allow people to build in. And I just think it's wrong. We're just extending that, we're removing the countryside. This is not an area we've planned to build on. And I think it's just pushing it another field and another field. And I think it would be wrong. I thought it was quite funny. It's the heritage assessment was on about conservation area. It's in the conservation area, but then it argued quite a bit about Whitchurch really shouldn't be a conservation area because people put bad windows up, and trying to argue that because people don't look upon it as a conservation area, then you don't need to worry about it being a conservation area. Maybe they didn't expect us to say, well, if in the past people have not treated it as a conservation area, maybe we should. And the first thing we'll do is conserve the green spaces. So I'm opposing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Any other comments, please? James, coming back on that, and then Leslie.
I mean, it is a green field. It's a farmer's field, and believe it or not, you have stables on farms. So I thought by having stables and a house, that was quite a good addition. I don't think we should be refusing absolutely everyone that wants to build properties in and around Tavistock. We need to pick our battles. I think this is an excellent proposal to repurpose a farmer's field to put stables on.
Okay, thank you. Leslie?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Andy, actually. I think this is a greenfield site. I'm pretty sure this was the one that had some objections on it. People were complaining about traffic congestion because it is very narrow there, and a number of horse boxes, in terms of the number of horses, I don't know how many they're planning on, but it seemed as if that could lead to congestion on a narrow road coming out onto Church Hill. I've made a note about drainage. I can't remember what that said. I don't know if that was in somebody's objection, but yeah, it's a greenfield site, and traffic congestion were the main ones that I recall.
I can just point out a couple of things that I lifted from the application. The first is that it's made very clear that this is not intended to be a commercial equine establishment. that is for private use, not for business use. So I don't think there's any employment gain. And in answer to your question, Leslie, my understanding is there would be 4 stables, 2 for resident horses and 2 for visiting horses. So I think that's the maximum number of stables. Of course, that isn't necessarily the maximum number of horses, because there would also be a paddock. I thought I saw some other hands go up. James, and then Alec.
Yeah, just the employment I was referring to, Chairman, was things like farriers,
Okay.
Local feed sales, etc. And with regards to congestion, there's plenty of farms up on the moors there. There's plenty of horse boxes go up there, and there's a cricket club right next to it, where every summer you'll have at least 22 cars rocking up. So there's issues there.
Alec?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Andy. I think that it's the thin end of the wedge, isn't it? I mean, am I correct in thinking that they were trying to put more houses on there originally?
Yes.
And that was down?
Yeah.
Is it not the thin edge of the wedge? They put one house there, and then somebody wants to put another, because they've built theirs. I think somebody else want to put another one, etc., etc. So I will object to it on the grounds of the fact that, not overdevelopment, because there's only one house at the moment, but it is a change, isn't it?
Okay, Graham.
Sorry, James is right and wrong. I am going to say that it's in countryside, but I don't rely on the settlement boundary for that. The applicant says it's in countryside. Mark Scoot, who is both the applicant and the planning consultant, is quite upfront about that. He's not trying to argue that it's within the settlement boundary, it's in countryside. There's history around the edge of Tavistock where development along country roads, inspectors have found would urbanise previously rural lanes, and I think this is one of those. Old Exeter Road is a classic. A number of appeals were lost there on just that basis. Now, why is that important? Well, the heritage assessment is actually quite coy. It does trace the history back of this land, and it's part of the glebe lands going back some 600 years. Whitchurch House until the mid-19th century, until the late 19th century, was the vicarage. And in 1846, the vicarage was doubled in size. The walkway from the vicarage to the church, that double line of trees, was included, and it looks like a lot of landscaping was undertaken. And what you ended up with was a kind of traditional Victorian landscape with pleasure gardens around the house, a wooded driveway, not where it is at the moment, but on the other side where Church Lee would be, a wooded driveway going up to the house, and arable fields beyond, so you get a view over countryside. And this field was one of those fields. It was in the ownership of Whitchurch House at the time it was listed, but it was held back from the sale a couple of years ago when Whitchurch House was last sold, specifically to keep it for development. And the chairman's right, this is the third try. The first one didn't end up with an application at all. The second one came in for 10 houses, and this is the third try. Interesting thing is that the heritage assessment doesn't mention at all that this is actually a part of the listed curtilage of Whitchurch House. And I think that's a big hole in the assessment. But that aside, there's no doubt that there will be harm. I don't say so, they say so. The question is how much harm. what will happen is that that field becomes yet another developed site, eating into the conservation area, eating into the countryside, and changing the setting of a Grade 1 listed building, which is the church. Now, if you look at the 1990 Listed Building and Conservation Area Act and the NPPF, you'll see that character isn't just the way something looks. It's not just architectural character, it's also historic character. You can change and affect and harm the significance of heritage assets by wiping out its history. Now, the field next door has already gone to a couple of houses, but that's done and gone. This is part of the history of Whitchurch House, the St Andrew's Glebe, and it's part of the history of St Andrew's Grade 1 listed church. So, whilst I agree with the applicant that there will be harm, I disagree with the applicant when they say, well, it doesn't matter. I think it does matter, and that harm will be significant. And as a result of that, it won't surprise you to know that I think I would object on heritage grounds as well as development in the countryside. Transport, I walk up there every day. That's part of my dog walking route. And I can tell you there is no way that they're going to get horse boxes turning into and out of there through an access that narrow. That Devon bank will have to come out a significant length in each direction just to get visibility splays. And that alone will be harm to the appearance of the conservation area. This is not setting of the conservation area, it is the conservation area. Now, James is dead right, that there is an access to the cricket club, and that is there. That's also the driveway to Whitchurch House. And there are times when there are cars in there. Can't stop that, that's part of the history. But that's no reason to create another, what I think will be a dangerous access. It'll either be dangerous or they'll have to take out so much Devon Bank that it'll be even more harmful, at a point where that road is particularly narrow. It has no footpath on either side. So I believe that there are road safety issues as well. It's interesting, you do say quite rightly, Chair, that there are 4 stables, but there are also 5 guest horse boxes. I believe this is going to be with a menage or a manege, depending on which part of the country you come from.
A sand school, anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be a training school, and there will be commercial use in there. There'll be horse boxes coming in and out regularly. But interestingly enough, that's not what the application's for. The application's for a for a house with associated stabling. And the evidence from the application is it's going to be more than that. Now, I'm not going to argue that a riding stable is inappropriate in a rural location. I wouldn't dream of doing that. I am going to argue that a development as dense and as large as this, in fact, a development in this location, is inappropriate and does harm to heritage. The last little bit is, we've talked about the loss of Devon Bank. I noticed that the tree officer isn't yet happy that this can be built without harming the trees around the site. So there's a holding objection on there. And somebody mentioned about that there is an objection from a resident in Churchley that's particularly well written. Chair, for heritage reasons, transport reasons, development in the countryside, I would certainly put my hand up for an objection.
Okay, thank you very much, Graham. Very, very thorough and comprehensive as usual. Any other comments, please? Do I hear a proposal? Go on.
May I suggest?
Andy, hold it, Graham.
Yes, go
Just
for
a moment.
it. Go for it.
Andy.
I propose that we object on the grounds that this is in the conservation area, would destroy more open countryside, would damage the Devon bank to gain access for large vehicles such as horse boxes. And would be to the detriment of the church, which is nearby, and Whitchurch House, which is nearby, which are historical buildings.
You've got to get the word heritage in there somewhere, Andy.
Have I missed that out? And these are heritage areas of Whitchurch.
Okay. So we have a proposal. Do we have a seconder? Graham, thank you. So we have a proposal that's seconded. Do you wish to debate this any further or move to a vote, Graham?
I think Graham wants to alter something.
May I with Andy's permission, suggest that the heritage issue be amended to read that it would harm the character and appearance of the conservation area and would cause significant harm to the significance. There's MPPF that uses significance in two ways, to the significance of the Grade 1 St Andrew's Church and Grade 2 listed Whitchurch House. And that would be contrary to Dev 21 of the JLP and to Section 16 of the MPPF. We've got the points about the access arrangements being unlikely to be adequate to accommodate large vehicles and the impact on the Devon bank. Could I suggest that we also add that this isn't a sustainable location? It's badly served by public transport and with inadequate pedestrian access.
I think you could be even more specific than that. As far as I'm aware, there's no public transport that goes up Churchill. And it's not, I mean, public access is inadequate, but is it worth actually specifying?
There's no footpath.
There's no footpath, and that it is regularly used by pedestrians going to the moor.
I think that's a very good.
I mean, it's not a road that's not ever used by pedestrians. There are always people going up and down there.
Day and night, yes.
Yeah. Tony, I have noticed you, and I'm coming to you right now. Over to you, Tony.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I will be supporting the application on the grounds that having horses and stables in the countryside is perfectly normal to me. The size of vehicles will have bigger tractors. It's a farming area, and I'm sure having God's creatures close to a church is not a great problem. And I'd say that I will be actually supporting the application.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else wish to say anything? In which case, let's move to a vote. The proposal is that we oppose this application. Grounds have been given. All those in favour of the proposal, please show. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those opposed? 1, 3, and I'm afraid I'm abstaining. I feel very torn about this one. I can see both sides of the argument. But the decision is that we object to this application. Okay. Let's wait for the nod from Jan. Thank you. And so we go on to Unit 1, Cree Lake Industrial Estate, re-advertisement. And this relates to an illuminated signage. And we've seen this application before. And as far as I can tell, I think someone must be unmuted. We're getting feedback. As far as we can tell, all they've done in this re-advertisement is change the hours that they want to have the signs illuminated. Apparently the signs were built illuminated, but they've never used them. Graham.
I don't think that's quite right, Chair.
No?
As far as I can see, the hours are the same. But what happened was that the case officer noticed that the signs didn't actually have planning permission in the first place.
Right.
So they were shown on the original drawings for Tabby Hire, but they weren't included in the permission. So she asked them to amend the application to include seeking permission for the signs as well as the hours.
Oh, okay. All right then. And if I could just remind you that we previously supported this application. There is one objection on the website. People living in Pixon Lane who are concerned about light pollution. But there's only that one objection. So the question is whether you wish to reconsider the view that we took last time, which was to support this application. James.
Yeah, I mean, we support it. Nothing's really changed since last time. Yes, we've had a letter of objection. The letter of objection comes from people who own half of that industrial estate anyway, and actually sold the land to Tabby Hire to build on there. So, you know, let's see what was coming.
Okay, Leslie.
Thank you. Yeah, the objection did state that they would be quite happy if the lights were turned off at 6 p.m. I don't know if there's any mileage in that bit, really, rather than 9 p.m. Because they go on to...
Anne?
I thought the hours were far too long. The place doesn't open till 7:30. Why they need to start at 6 o'clock in the morning, I don't understand. I would have thought 7 to 7 or 7 to 6 would be plenty of hours.
Okay, James?
Yeah, just to come back about the hours, we spoke about this when we first seen this application. The hours are laid out. It's for tradesmen that are travelling to work. That way they can advertise that they're a hire centre to tradesmen that are travelling to work and travelling home from work in those hours.
Right, okay. And Graham?
Thanks, Chair. They've actually restated in this application as well that the purpose of the hours is for added security, to provide effectively to provide light, to prevent burglary. I objected last time. I mean, I can, if the will of the committee is that that we support it again, I concede that nothing really has changed. Then I'll simply abstain, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Then it sounds to me that as though we see no particular reason to change what we said last time, which was to support the application. The application hasn't changed substantially in any way. Do you wish to make a comment that we wonder whether the proposed hours of illumination are unnecessarily long? I'm seeing quite a few heads nodding. James?
We didn't see the need last time. I don't see why we need to make a comment this time. Essentially, nothing has changed. We should be supporting local businesses run by local people. This committee has argued strongly for 18,500 square foot of industrial land, so we should be supporting employers that are on our existing industrial land to carry on earning a living.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody wish to respond to that?
Only here.
Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, I agree. Seems very reasonable, James. Yeah.
I think Councillor Lewis has got his hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to ditto.
Sorry, Alan.
No, don't worry. I just wanted to agree with James, thoroughly agree with him on that. I think we should just carry on. You know, we went through this last time. I don't think it's worth unpicking what we did.
Okay, I'm going to make a proposal, and that is that we see no reason to change our previously stated view, which is that we support the application. Do I have a seconder? I do. Do you wish to debate further? In which case, should we take a vote on that, please? All those in favour, please show. Okay, those opposed? Abstaining? 2. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one is 8 Deer Leap. It's a tree application. A Norway maple crown height reduction, a birch crown height reduction, and another birch crown height reduction. Do you wish to discuss this or refer straight through to the tree officer?
Tree officer.
Okay, all happy? So we refer to the tree officer. Thank you. Right. The next one is Antex Park Westbridge Industrial Estate, an application to extend existing industrial building and development of 8 new industrial units.
Paul, you've missed one.
This one, Mr. Chairman.
Which one have I missed? Oh, Parkwood Road. Sorry. So 36 Parkwood Road. Listed builder consent to re-roof the property using existing slates, replacing any worn lead flashing, repoint chimney, and repair guttering. In fact, if my reading of the application is correct, it's 36 and 38. It looks as though the roofing extends over the 2 cottages. Anyone have any comments to make? Okay, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems perfectly a perfectly good application. Just make a couple of comments. When people refer to a proportionate heritage assessment, this one is just that. It's half a page, and it nails it. The only criticism I would have of it is that since one of the really important issues in the World Heritage designation, inscription as they called it, is the contribution made by the Bedford cottagers. It would have been helpful had the heritage assessment mentioned the World Heritage site in when they were looking at this one. But yeah, it's a perfectly good and much needed application from the look of it.
Yeah, agreed. So we're all happy to support that, aren't we? Yes? Yes. Right, I'll try again. Antex Park, Westbridge Industrial Estate. To extend existing industrial building and development of 8 new industrial units. This involves adding an additional, I think they call it pod, to an existing building. So that would become quite a large building. And to construct a terrace of 8 smaller industrial units. There is one, in fact, no, I think there's more than one representation objecting to this application or being uncertain about this application. Any comments? Anne?
I thought this was one that would definitely benefit from a site visit to actually go there and have a look, because it does sound as if this is looking down on the houses in, is it Dorcas Close?
Yes.
It would be quite helpful for people to actually see the impact anything here would have.
Okay, thank you. And was it James? Did I see your hand go up? Yeah.
Yes, Chairman. I think it's becoming a bit of a mantra of mine. It's an industrial estate. We want Tavistock to be self-sustaining. We should be supporting development within our industrial estates to bring employment into.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Andy? You're still muted.
I thought the representations from people on the web actually was not necessarily negative. It was more just, we want to make sure that they don't make the area untidy. It wasn't really saying we don't want it. So I actually would quite like, if it's an industrial area, let's put some industrial units there.
Yeah. I think the representations covered essentially 3 areas. There was one person who was worried about the construction of a soakaway and was worried that water would soak away through the bank and come into his garden. And then there were expressions of concern about possible light pollution and noise. I think those were the main things that were being raised. But I take the point that they were expressions of uncertainty rather than out and out objections. Leslie.
Yes, I mean, I agree with James, actually. I think we should be encouraging this as it is on an industrial estate. If I remember correct, I'm not muted. Can you not hear me?
No, you're fine. You're breaking up a bit, though.
Oh, sorry. Okay. If I remember rightly, there were some industrial units there before that have been knocked down.
Correct.
So it's only actually replacing that, isn't it? And I think, yes, we need those industrial units here. So.
Okay. Graham?
Absolutely agree. The application form says 25 car parking spaces, which made me raise my eyebrows, but the application drawings show 40. So I'm perfectly happy that it's going to consume its own smoke with parking. The application form says industrial, but the design and access statement says B1, B2 and B8. Well, as we all know, B1 doesn't exist anymore. It's now part of Class E. This is an area, and James hit the nail right on the head. It's so important to Tavistock as a source of employment that the joint local plan actually identifies it for protection. And it's the only place in the whole of the thriving towns and villages that's picked out for protection for B1, B2 and B8 employment uses. So, yeah, I mean, I'd, if it was possible, I'd go even further than supporting it, but welcome it. It does seem to be a well thought out development. The units are of a size that look to be affordable. And the only thing I would suggest is that we match the permission with what the local plan says, which is asking for a condition restricting the use to B2, B8 and E, that Class E, brackets G, Roman little 2 and 3, which is what they've applied for in the first place. So it's just that's just closing that circle between an application that's trying to accord with the local plan and what the local plan says and what the application says. But yeah, I'm very happy to support James in everything he says about this. We've been working hard to get employment into Tavistock. We talk about sustainability, self-containment. I'm very happy to support this.
Okay, thank you. Alec?
Yeah, I totally support this as well. I think we'll just tidy the area up a bit. But I must also point out what Anne said about if it's not overlooking anything else, if that is no concern, then I'd totally support it.
Okay. I think it's absolutely right. There was a large industrial unit on that site previously that has been demolished. So it has a long history of being an industrial site. It's not as though it's suddenly being turned into one from something else. And the Dorcas Close, or Dorcas Road, is it Close? Close. Dorcas Close was obviously built after the industrial site was established, I would suggest. I'm in favour of this development personally. Shall we propose? Yeah, go on, Alec.
Yeah, I also noticed that there are going to be smaller units. I remember all the other units were massive, great places.
Yep.
And to make them a lot smaller, they may get people setting up businesses as opposed to, I can't afford this massive, great building.
No,
so
sure.
I think it'll be more welcoming.
Yeah, and I think the design incorporates flexibility so that two units could be combined for, say, if somebody needed something a bit bigger. So that sounds very sensible as well. There's a degree of future proofing going on there, which makes sense. Can I propose, therefore, that we support this application? A seconder? Yes. All those in favour, please show.
Chair.
Yes.
Chair. Could we put that advisory about the use classes B2, B8, and EG2 and 3, and say that it would come as no surprise to the applicant because that's effectively what they've applied for.
Okay, Jan, was that what you wanted to pick up?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'll just wait for the nod. Thank you. So the next one is Unit 8 Tavistock Retail Park, which you will all know as the Fairway Furniture Warehouse that's been empty for a very long time now. I think all the time that I've been in Tavistock. And it's an application for change of use to a car showroom. Open for discussion. James.
I'm not going to repeat my mantra because everyone knows it by now. But I think we should.
I agree with that.
Did you? I'm afraid you froze on my screen, James. Did you say you think we should support it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else before I invite Graham? Graham?
Lewis wants to
Yeah, yeah. Just to
Where are
say,
you? Oh, there you are.
in that area, absolutely support it. Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. Thank you. And Graham?
Yeah, only to add that if only this use had come in 4 years ago, we could have saved all the time and expense of an appeal against the pets at home thing. It's a cracking use of that building. I've got no problem with that at all.
No, and nor have I. I think it's a very good use for that site, and of course it won't be competing with town centre businesses. So it will create some new employment, and it will complement rather than compete with the town's existing offer. So all in favour of supporting, please show. Yep, done. Thank you. So we go now to 4 Edgecombe Drive. Householder application for proposed rear extension to provide garden room and external seating area. Open for discussion. Does anyone have any concerns about this application? Okay, happy to support? Okay, so that is supported. Right. This is an interesting one. Garage, Barley Market Street. First floor extension and conversion of garage into a self-contained holiday let. And you'll be aware that this is behind the Drake Road offices, where there is a dilapidated garage in the shadow of Old Exeter Road. Open for discussion. James.
When I first read this plan, I thought, what a clever little idea. And then I carried on reading the plan, and the further I got into it, and the more I got into the plan, it just convinced me more and more and more to object to this. And my reasons are the old Exeter Road wall. We've had concerns with development up against that road before and how that will affect that wall. I'm guessing, you know, whatever is done to that garage is going to have an effect to that wall. There is absolutely no parking. They actually put it in their statements that their excuse is they're in the centre of towns, they don't need to provide parking. However, it's going to be a holiday let. And I would say very few people are going to travel to Tavistock by train and bus. I mean, their holiday will be over by the time they get here on a train and bus. So the parking issue there. And then if they go up to a story, they're going to be blocking flat windows. And you know, it's not the greatest view out those windows, but they've still got a right to look out their window and not look at a brick wall. So I propose we reject this plan application.
Okay, thank you. Pete.
I've received a very vociferous objection from a member of the public about this particular site, and I was ambivalent, if not undecided about it before, but that convinced me that I would oppose this particular proposal. So on the grounds that it was a very well written and considered objection to it.
What was the principal grounds of the objection, Pete, as far as you recall?
To be honest, I can't remember now. I just remember reading it, and I forwarded it to your good self for the chair's consideration, and it can be shared with the members of the committee if so needs be.
Very well. The principal objection was on the grounds of parking. That there is a tendency already for people to parallel park on the pavement outside that garage, obstructing the footpath, creating a hazard for pedestrians and so forth. And interestingly, on the application form, it does say there will be a parking space. But as the observation has been made, there really isn't room for a parking space unless you parallel park on the pavement, I suppose. And we've already got one parishioner who is clearly very unhappy about that. So it does seem to me that parking is a very significant issue.
Yes, I would concur with that because other members, having lived in Old Exeter Road, have complained, and I've taken the matter to the police about pavement parking there. So it is a continual problem, really.
Okay. Graham?
Yeah, absolutely agree with James about the no parking business. I mean, people arriving, dropping off and picking up at the end of the holiday. People who come to Tavistock for holiday use us as a base to travel around. People are going to need somewhere to park their car. And like a lot of us, I get regular complaints about parking in just this very spot, probably from the same person that Pete's referring to. I also agree with James about the impact on the wall, but what annoys me about this is that this applicant is professionally represented, and there's absolutely no mention that this is in the conservation area, the setting of several listed buildings in the World Heritage Centre, World Heritage Site. This was the site of Tavistock's first Wesleyan chapel. So it's got history, it's got significance, but it's also a part of a very tightly knit little area. And dropping a two-storey building into this site, the parking issue aside, and I also agree with James about blocking views and blocking lights, is significantly going to change the appearance of this area, both from Barley Market Street and from behind as well, from Kilworthy. As it happens, I think that change will be harmful, and that it should be a reason for refusal. But the fact that the applicant hasn't even bothered to assess it, there is no heritage assessment. You can't come to any other conclusion other than, well, it's harmful because the applicant hasn't shown that it isn't. But it's another one. I just wonder why, oh why, was this application ever validated? It should not have got to us without an ability for us to see the arguments why the applicant thinks it's appropriate. So adding to the arguments that James has put forward, I would add that this will cause harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area, the World Heritage Site, and the setting of several listed buildings, and is contrary to my old friend Policy Dev 21 and Section 16 of the MPPF.
I just wonder whether that could be flipped around slightly and say that in the absence of a heritage statement, the applicant has failed to demonstrate that the proposal is not harmful to, etc., etc.
Elegant. I absolutely agree with that, because the duty is on the applicant to show that it won't cause harm.
Okay, so that's one issue. Another issue is the parking, because we're not convinced that there is parking, and there is amenity to adjacent to residents of adjacent properties as a result of basically erecting an obstruction to their view and light. I'm always slightly careful about view, because correct me if I'm wrong, but you have no right to a view. Is that correct, Graham?
That's absolutely correct. You have no right to a view. You have a right to light, but also you have a right in a conservation area not to have the character and appearance of the conservation area harmed. But you're right. We shouldn't be framing objections around right to a view.
No. Just to be devil's advocate for a moment, it would be nice if something could be done to that garage. It is dilapidated. It is an eyesore. Something needs to happen to it. And this is the first proposal we've seen.
Indeed.
But maybe another one will come through.
Yes, I mean, sadly, it's the way that the job of planning authorities has changed over the decades. I mean, if we were back in the 1970s, yes, you could be now saying, well, actually, if they came in and did this, that, and the other, then that might change our attitude. But we're not allowed to do that anymore, and local authorities are just there to assess the application in front of them. But I agree with you. That whole area, the car park next door and this garage, is just crying out for a decent little development that adds to the vitality of the town centre.
Yeah. Jen?
Sorry, did you want to make a comment about any potential damage to the wall, or did I miss that?
You're right. We have expressed concern with that other property further down the road. So yes, I think we should express concern about damage to the wall. And I think another point we made was we were concerned with the other property about who would be responsible for the maintenance of the wall, because it's going to be the same problem, isn't it? That new property will be not exactly right bang up against it, but jolly close. It's going to be difficult to do maintenance work behind it if it's a two-story building. Pete?
Point of historical information, that site used to be public toilets for the town.
Yes, I know.
A long time ago.
Sure, yeah. Graham?
Yeah, I've just been checking on the application form. It does say that there's a the one car parking space proposed, but it also says that that one car parking space is the existing one retained. In other words, the pavement.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds as though we've aligned ourselves to opposing this application. Can I confirm that with you? All those in favour of objecting to this application, please show. No contrary views. Okay, thank you very much. Do you have all you need, Jan? Okay, so Tavistock College, Groundale Road. Demolition of existing ICT Rosler blocking and replacement with new teaching block. Before we consider this, could someone educate me? What is Rosler blocking? Oh, it's not just me then. Okay, well, apparently they want to replace it. They want to build a new maths block, 2 stories, 6 classrooms in total, and photovoltaic cells on the roof. Open for discussion. Was that a request to speak, Andy, or just approval? Approval.
Yeah, ditto.
Okay. Graham, what do you want to say?
Rosler means raising of school leaving age.
Really?
But oh dear, I hate doing this. This is within a few meters of the World Heritage Site, of John Taylor's Canal. When you read what has been written, the applicant has taken into consideration everything except heritage. It hasn't looked at he hasn't looked at the heritage of this site. Now, I know there's a building on the site before anybody says, and I know that the building on the site is not terribly good. But a number of things worry me about this. I think, yeah, let's go back to the incongruous development phrase. I think that what is being proposed is dreadful. In that location, it will stand out like a sore thumb. It'll be an awful framing to the canal. But what worries me slightly, well, almost as much, is that this is referred to in the drawings and in the design and access statement as phase 1. There is more to come. Now, I understand the school's problem. I've got a copy of their dilapidation schedule, and it makes some horrendous reading. I know that over the years, they're going to have to pretty well rebuild a huge amount of that college. But my view is that doing it building by building, doing it in a quality that we've got in this application is not the way to do it. I really, really could not put my hand up for this application. And I say that both as a member of this town council and as your rep on the World Heritage Site. And what I would do is I'd draw your attention to the contrast. This last time, the last meeting, we had an application from Mount Kelly about the refurbishment of the squash courts to create a new admin block. The care that was taken to over heritage in that application, we actually remember, if you remember, we actually praised them and said how good it was. Now you look at this one, they're actually ignoring both the conservation area and the World Heritage Site. I would with a very, very heavy heart. I think this is going to do real harm to the World Heritage Site, and I would put my hand up against it. I'm sorry.
Anne, I think you wanted to say something.
Only just when we were saying that if this does mean raising of the school leaving age, this was the old sixth form block at the school when I was there.
Oh, right.
That's it.
Okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? James.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, Rosler blocking is essentially prefabricated buildings. So if you can imagine huts, on top of huts to form one big building. Yep. They do it on a lot of military as well. And I think we should support it. They haven't got a beautiful application like Mount Kelly because it's a state school. They don't charge £5 a term. So on a limited budget, they're going to have to go with what they can. I don't think we as a town council should be standing in the way of kids getting a new classrooms to educate themselves in. The sixth form block is horrific. And to be fair, anything they replaced it with will be an improvement. So I think we should support this application, especially as a proud pupil at Tabby College or comprehensive. So yeah, I think we support this all the way.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, please?
I'd second that.
Okay. For what it's worth, my view is that we should support it. The conservation area wraps itself around this site. I fully accept that the college site is immediately adjacent to the conservation area and the World Heritage Site, but it doesn't form part of it. And that's one other fundamental difference with Mount Kelly, which of course is part of the Tavistock Conservation Area. What it's replacing looks frankly abominable. And in one photograph, I was unsure whether the building that it's replacing was even still in use. It seemed to have fencing around it, keeping people away from it. This is not an inspiring building, but it is a practical building, providing 6 classrooms with a reasonable amount of space. And I agree, the college desperately needs new accommodation, and I don't think we should be standing in the way of it. So that's my view. Graham.
I'm not foolish. I can see the way this discussion is going, so I'll make a couple of points, if I may. First of all, if as local authorities we say we can't afford to do the job properly and look after and show that we're taking care of a World Heritage town, then we're setting an incredibly bad example to the rest of the world. The second is, I'm, because of the fact that I am also your rep on the World Heritage Site, I'm now torn between either declaring an interest or asking for my vote against the proposal to be recorded. I'll leave that one to you, Chair. But I would like it to be known that I don't support this. I think it's a dreadful building in this location.
Okay, thank you. It would probably be clearer then, Graham, if it was recorded that you voted against it. I think that would make your position clearer, wouldn't it?
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Rather than declaring an interest.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that.
Leslie?
Thank you. Yeah, there is a heritage statement on this application that talks about being on the edge of the World Heritage Site. And it says the designated and proposed conservation areas, the visual impact needs to be assessed. And I think there's plenty of buildings around it. I mean, I actually couldn't even place where this particular building, the eyesore that is hopefully coming down, was. And I just think we need to support this. Young people have had a really bad deal over coronavirus as well. It may well be that they need that extra space, and really, you know, with children just going back to school today, we shouldn't really be turning down something that is going to accommodate children more adequately in these conditions, my feeling. So I fully support this application.
Okay, thank you. I'd also just make the observation that the building that's being replaced is a 3-story building, and this is a 2-story building. Its mass is less than the building it's replacing. Okay, do I hear a proposal?
That we support it.
Okay, seconder for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And in that case, all those in favour of the proposal that we support this application, please show. Okay, thank you. And those opposed to this application, please show. And if you could specifically record, Jan, that Councillor Parker opposed this. And any abstentions? Councillor Venning is abstaining. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next one is 23 Chaucer Road. We've seen this application before. Demolition of existing bungalow and its replacement with new. And it's a resubmission of 3026/20/full. And you remember this is to build a passive house spec bungalow. The last time we considered it, we were supportive, but we made the comment that we believe that use of grey water was considered as part of the passive house spec. That is specifically addressed in this application, and it's made clear that it is not, in fact, part of the passive house spec. And it also made some comment that they had considered the safety of using grey water and had concerns about spray from flushing toilets. There it is. Leslie, please.
Yes, I raised the comment about the grey water last time, and actually the minutes did read wrongly because I didn't say that it met that using grey water would meet passive house standards. I just said it would make it a more sustainable sort of application. Yeah. And they have obviously gone away and thought about that.
Yes.
And I've been looking at this issue myself, actually. And it is to do with drinking water. That's you can't use it inside because it's, I mean, obviously it would be more beneficial to be using grey water to be flushing toilets, but it's things like hand washing, which is where you need filtered water that's gone through all of the systems, really. So yeah, I'm completely fine with what they've said, and I think it should be commended that they actually took the point on board and thought about it, actually.
Okay, thank you very much. Andy.
Just for information, this has been talked about in the area because I live about 150 yards away. Fundamentally, nothing has changed in this application. It's purely that they discovered that a sewer was a little bit too close to the footings, and so they have been told that they have to move the footings, they have to move the building a little bit, and completely resubmit the whole thing and reapply completely from scratch for planning permission again, and delay their project for several months. So it's I don't think there's any major change, well, hardly any change at all.
Right, just a slight displacement of the building.
Yeah, that's it.
Graham?
Yeah, I mean that Andy is a mistake that some applicants do make. What they should have done is insisted on a condition that lists the drawings, and then all they would have had to have done is substitute one drawing for the other. And it seems like a bureaucratic nonsense, but unfortunately, yeah, that it had to come back in total. It's yeah, unfortunate, but yeah, there's no other change.
Okay. I assume that we're still supportive of this application. Yep. Everyone? Okay, fine. So we support the application. Right. So the next one is an application by New Home Southwest Limited for land opposite Wilminstone Industrial Estate, Old Exeter Road. Outline application, all matters reserved for erection of 10 dwellings. Open for discussion. Pete, you're first, and then James.
I was stunned by this application. I've run past that field for the past 40 years. I cannot believe that they were thinking of using it for building. Well, that might be a naivety on my part, but I as a local resident, was my gas was flabbered to realise that they were even thinking of it at this point. So I'm at this stage in opposition to it.
Could I ask, apart from being used to seeing it looking green, was there any specific reason why your ghast was flabbered?
Well, partly because I didn't think it was in any remote area for any proposed building project. I know that Hazeldean was further over, was approved for housing, but this was, it is arguably a site of scenic beauty, which with the River Wallabrook throwing down one side, and I just was surprised that they had taken such a scenic spot for a development plan. But that might be a naive statement of a greenie, really.
Okay, thank you. James.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm probably going to set myself up for the firing squad again, but bear with me. It's an outline application. I believe we should have a neutral view to this. I have concerns. One of my concerns is it's 10 properties, and I believe the threshold for affordable housing is 11, so it falls just under that. I have real concerns over access to the property with the lane there. And I think before we made a decision, I would like to see the plans. Am I against buildings going on that field? The field is surrounded by property. I think it would be a lovely place to live if they could sort out the access. I thought the actual plan was very good. I quite enjoyed going through the photos from Cox Tour, and looking at, you know, another way another plan has gone attacked it. So I thought that was quite good. So I believe we should go for a neutral view, to be honest.
Okay, Leslie.
Thank you. I don't know if everyone received the report from Tavistock Travel Action Group, the Transition Travel Action Group. I thought she sent it to all councillors because they don't feel it's in a sustainable location. There is no way, there's no transport there, there are no footpaths. There's talk about a bicycle track, a cycle track, but that's up on the viaduct, so it really doesn't follow through in terms of being sustainable. When I looked at what they were proposing for the housing, I like the fact that they were taking energy efficiency very seriously, and that looked really good. But I did also wonder if it was outside of the settlement area. And they would tell me there's no settlement boundaries, but I just really wasn't quite sure, really, because I know there are houses everywhere else, but it comes out onto Old Exeter Road, as Kit Harbottle says, without any footpath there. So those are just my thoughts.
Okay. And I'll just have my two penneth, if you don't mind. Obviously, there's the issue of yet another green field being consumed by housing, which is a perpetual concern, creeping growth. The settlement boundary, as we've said earlier this evening, currently doesn't exist, except in our imagination, if you like. I did pick up, going through it, that, well, it's only 65 metres from the Trendle, and there was an admission in their heritage assessment that there could be underground remains of prehistoric significance in that field. It's an unknown quantity, but it's certainly considered to be possible. Yet they came to the conclusion that the harm would be minimal. That struck me as being a bit of a double-edged sword, perhaps. So I have concerns about eating into the countryside. I have concerns about the heritage value, potential heritage value of the site. I have concerns about the proximity to the Trendle. as I have lots of concerns. Alec, I think you wanted to say something, did you? Yeah, you need to unmute yourself.
On the fact that the access to the place, I mean, you're going up once again onto Exeter Road, and then you're going over to a little lane to come down onto the main road. Surely access is one of the main priorities to it, isn't it? I then wouldn't think Exeter Road was the best place to run a bus up to that to the site or anything.
No.
That's my main concern with it all.
Okay, thank you. Graham?
Yeah, the settlement boundary issue isn't as dead a dodo as you might think, Chair. There was when we first raised the issue of settlement boundaries and got into that, let's say, full and frank discussion with West Devon, we were told that although the local plan doesn't identify settlement boundaries, a topic paper was produced that was put in front of the inspector that explained how West Devon were treating settlement boundaries. And Leslie is quite right. This site is well outside what West Devon told the local plan inspector the settlement boundary would be had it been included in the local plan. So I don't think there's any doubt that this site is in countryside. And there's enough, and I've talked about appeal decisions before, there's enough appeal decisions on Old Exeter Road to say that what Peter and Leslie intuitively feel inspectors are supporting, that this site is in countryside. Now, what the application says is that, well, you approved the 12 houses at the Trendle, so it's just the same. Well, no, that's not just the same. First of all, those houses at the Trendle were approved before the local plan was adopted, and all the local plan does is identify that as a site that had planning permission. But it was also approved at a time when there wasn't a 5-year land supply. And all bets were off on housing developments. That's not the situation anymore, and they can't use the Trendle as a what's the word I'm looking for?
Precedent.
That's the word. Thank you. That's the second issue. I know the planning statement refers to it, and I expect that to come out again in the future. There's an interesting little bit in the planning statement, though, that reminds us that planning permission was granted for a development on this site in 2010. And the claim is made that that development has started. And it was an application for the extension of the Wilminster industrial estate. It was for small light industrial units. That either they're right or they're wrong. If they're wrong, and that's planning permission has gone, then it's a greenfield site, and there's really no more to be said about that. But if they're right and that development has started, then what they'll be saying is, well, we could build that anytime, and you couldn't stop us, and these houses would look better than the industrial development. Well, actually, that's not quite true, because that's not the way to approach it. Because if that has started and we can't do anything about it, then that site is protected under the Joint Local Plan Development Policy 14, which says you don't lose sites that have the ability for small businesses and for businesses to grow. So whichever way you look at it, there is no compelling reason to override the policy about development in countryside. And that's added to. I mean, I have read what Kit and her team have written, and that really is compelling. That if ever a site was in an unsustainable location, I think they've made the case in terms of access to public transport, access to non-car modes of transport, access to a cycle path 50 feet up in the air, the nature of Old Exeter Road there. So I think personally the issue about this being an unsustainable location in terms of transport is well made, and I would be happy to support pretty well everything that they've said. So it seems to me that we've got the two prongs to an objection, if that's what we want to do. One is the unjustified development in countryside, and the other one is the unsustainable location.
Can we also play the heritage card? I mean, given that its proximity to a statutory monument.
Yes, you can. Sorry, again, I'm sorry. Unlike me to miss a trick there, but I agree with you. Yes.
Well, now, I did wonder. Oh, sorry, James, go on before I say anything else.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it's just one on transport. I mean, we haven't seen the plans yet, so we don't know how they're going to develop that junction or anything like that. But one thing I would like to say. I mean, they're putting 10 properties on there, and from the location and the size of the plot, I'm guessing that the potential owners are more likely to be driving Range Rovers than getting on a bus. So I don't think they're going to struggle for transport in that way. So.
Yeah, but that's not really the point, is it? I mean, the point is that we're supposed to be working with the concept of sustainable development, and sustainable means things like not being dependent on a car. Whereas I think it's this application where the applicants themselves have admitted that people will pretty much need to use a car to live there. Well, that surely is flying in the face of everything that's important and stated in the NPPF, isn't it, Graham?
Absolutely right, Chair. The simple fact that everybody will be using their Range Rovers and such like in this location does fly in the face of everything in the NPPF about sustainability, sustainable location, using modes other than the private car, and right the way through to the joint local plan. So you are absolutely right, Chair.
Okay. Yes, James.
Yeah, completely get it. I mean, I'm not going to have the argument over the NPPF right now, but that clearly wasn't written by anyone that was married, bringing up children. Quite frankly, you cannot do anything without a car in this day and age. So it clearly wasn't written by somebody like myself. But I'm not going to debate that now.
It was written by David Cameron.
Well, on his behalf. Okay. Now, I did wonder when I went through the applications this afternoon whether we would come to a conclusion on this application. Because this is for 10 properties or more, under the agreement we previously came to, we would refer this to full council for validation. I can't find the word I'm looking for at the moment, but anyway, we would refer it to full council. Now, we would have time to come back to this at the next DM&L meeting if we don't feel ready to respond to it, but that wouldn't give us time to put it before full council by the determination date. So really, I'm looking to you now to see whether you feel that you know enough about this application to be able to make a recommendation to full council, which would then effectively go forward tomorrow when the minutes are read out. How do you feel about it, Andy?
There are 10 of us here already, Chairman. We have discussed it. It's not as though we are really in disagreement over what our recommendation is. So I think we could go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Any other views, please? Graham?
I agree.
Is that it?
Yep.
I've never heard you say just 2 words before. So, okay. Can I have a proposal, please? Go on, Graham.
Yeah, I move that we object on 3 grounds. 1, this is unjustified development in the countryside. 2, that this is an unsustainable location, and the development will rely on the use of the private car. And 3, that there appears to be potential for significant harm to a heritage asset, namely the archaeological archaeological remains.
Do you want to get the word statutory monument in there somewhere? Because
that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's like digging up the abbey, isn't it? If you start causing harm to the trendle or anything that emanates from the trendle.
Chair, can I ask what the trendle is? I'm suffering a lack of recognition.
Pete, you're a local lad.
What?
That probably explains it, really. An awesome display of ignorance as well at times.
Okay, the trendle is a Stone Age earthworks, which is in the grounds of Mount Kelly. And it's to the northeast of this application site by a distance of some 65 meters, which isn't very much. And I think if you speak to someone like Andrew Thompson, he would probably be the first to admit that the full extent of that site isn't yet known. And it is perfectly possible that there are significant remains under the application site. It's never been explored, so it's hard to know, but it's so close that there could be something there.
Oh, thank you very much. I shall go and search.
Can't hear you. Yeah.
Chair, in Pete's defence, the official website for the trendle does say that few local people have ever heard of it.
James?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think we're assuming something here because we've only had an outline application and we're going on about transport and sustainability. For all we know, when they put the planning application in, they could build an all singing, all dancing bus stop right outside and pay for a bus for the next 5 years. You know, we don't know that yet until we actually see their application and what they're going to give the town. So, you know, to object to what we don't know already, like we don't know, is a bit premature for me. I mean, I think we go for, you know, we've got a proposal for an objection. I get that, and we've got to take that first, but we're assuming a lot without actually seeing, and I personally would prefer a neutral view.
Okay, my response to that, I think, is that we can only consider what's before us and use our knowledge of local geography. And our local geography tells us that there are no bus services there, that there is no safe walking route from that site into town. Either you've got to walk up onto Old Exeter, I keep wanting to say Old Oxford Road, I don't know why, Old Exeter Road, and there is no footpath, there are no street lights, and it might be fine to walk down it on a spring evening, but you probably don't want to walk down there on a winter's night. The alternative is to come down to the main road, the 386, and walk along that. And whilst there is a footpath of sorts, at points it's extremely narrow and you couldn't safely walk along it with a child hanging off your arm. So either way, it's not a very sustainable walking route. When it comes to cycles, you've got the same problems cycling in. You've either got to cycle down Old Exeter Road and it's narrow and that creates its own problems, or you've got to cycle along the main road, or yes, that's the cycle path, but that's 100 feet up on the top of the viaduct. So you've got to get up there first. So that's not a very attractive proposition either. So as things currently stand, it is not a viable proposition from the sustainability point of view, certainly not for the active transport point of view. And knowing what's going on with bus services locally, the probability of finding a new bus going along there isn't great. So I think we can only judge on the basis of what's in front of us and what we know about local geography. And that leads me to understand that it's not a sustainable location. Jan.
Can I just ask, do you want me to put that in the recommendation so that recommended that based on the information currently available, Tavistock Town Council objects on the following basis, or do you not want that in?
Well, I think it's very clear that this is an outline application with all matters reserved. I don't think we really need to spell it out to that degree. I could always explain that when I present the minutes if need be. Okay, you've all gone very quiet. So there is a proposal that we object to this. You've heard the grounds. Can I take that as a seconding, Andy? Do you wish to debate this any further? In which case, can we take a vote then, please? All those in favour, please show. Tony, is your left hand up? No. Those opposed to this then, please show. And those abstaining, please show. Three abstentions. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Okay.
Foreign squad.
Don't worry, we fire blanks. Okay, that's is the last of the applications for this evening and brings us to the end of the meeting. We meet again on the, when do we meet again, Joan? On the 30th of March. Tuesday the 30th of March is when we meet again. But of course, we've got full council tomorrow evening.
Thank you, Chair.
I bid you all good night.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Good
Chairman.
night,
Well
everybody.
done.
Bye.
Nice, everybody.